Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Gracie from the Dig team, and this is video 4 of our Dig Data tutorial series. So if you remember at the end of video 3, we were looking at the descriptive statistics for our temperature variables from a Seattle weather station. And if you recall, in the Google Sheet, we could see that there are a lot of missing values for the average temperature. And so this video is going to talk about how to deal with missing data and what you can do about that to make sure that your analysis runs smoothly. So first we'll go over a couple strategies for dealing with missing data, and then we will get into what we want to do for our tutorial. Alright, so there's two main camps of how to deal with missing data. And so the first one that we'll discuss is just removing all the entries that are missing for that field. So for example, in our Seattle weather data, that would mean just removing every daily measurement, every row, where we're missing this average temperature value. And so we can see here that the average temperatures start on, let me actually make this a little bit bigger, here we go, the average temperature measurements start on April 1st in 1998. And if we scroll back to the top of our data, we can see that we actually have max and min data starting in 1950. And so removing all of the data from before April of 1998 we would lose a huge chunk of the data and kind of undermine the longevity of this data, which is what makes it so useful for us, because if we want to see climate trends over the 70 years or so, we want to make sure that we have kind of as complete a record as we want. And so that brings us to kind of the second approach that we can use, and that's finding some way to fill in this missing data, whether you're calculating it with other fields that you have in your data set or interpolating it like we are about to do. And so luckily we have the Tmax and min, and so while we can't calculate like the statistical average between these, we can do a little interpolation where we can assume that the average temperature is kind of the halfway point between the max and min every day. And so what we can do is use Google Sheets formulas to calculate that average. And so the first step we want to do when we're calculating something in Excel or Google Sheets, we're going to name our new column. So these, in keeping with the naming convention in our sheet, we're just going to call this TINT, which will stand for temperature interpolated. And so to make a formula in Google Sheets or Excel, you first start by typing the equals button. And then you can start typing what you want to do. So I want to take the numerical average, and so it'll open up this drop-down menu where we can select the formula we want. So I want the average, and then you can look at the little formula for the formula, I guess, where you can see what you need to input to complete the calculation. So you've put the value 1, which we're going to select here to be column E2. To do the next value, you enter a comma. Then we can select F2. So we have our max and min as our input for this formula. Then you always want to make sure you close the parentheses, and then you can click enter, and you can see now that we have the average between the max and min in our TINT column. One of the nice things about Google Sheets is it has this new suggested autofill feature, which will apply this formula to everything in our sheet and go all the way down the column. And so I'm just going to click the check button here and apply that to the rest of our data. And we can see here now that it is automatically calculated our T interpolated for every value in the data set. So if we scroll down, we can see we have this complete record of TINT. And if we take a look back at 1998, Yeah, and we can see there's actually several more gaps in our average data than where it first starts. So here we can see, even for all of these missing values of t average in 1998 and prior, we now have our t int value. All right, so scrolling back up to the top of our sheet, if you still have your column stats menu open, you can use the arrows just to take a look at tint. If not, remember that to find the column stats, we select the column, right-click, and go down to the column stats button in the drop-down menu and select that. And now we can see here that looking at our interpolated average temperature, that the most common values are around 46, 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you can check here and see how many missing rows and unique values there are. So now that we have a complete record of our maximum temperature, minimum temperature, and now we have our interpolated average temperature, we can move on to visualizing the data and trying to get a sense of these temperature trends at this weather station. And so in the next video, we will start visualizing the data and also look at some ways where we can kind of aggregate and summarize the data such that it would make it a little bit easier for us to interpret.